Let's get a read now on the United States and the scene there, of course. Alex Tureman, founder at Bondi Partners, joins us now live out of Washington. Alex, pleasure to have you. You're right in the centre of all the protests and riots that are happening across the United States. Just give us an idea, because it hasn't had a huge impact. I mean, if we look from a market perspective, it hasn't had an impact on markets, but just what is the scene there like right now?
Well, Ingrid, thanks for having me on. That's a really great question. First, I want to say that what we saw in Lafayette Park yesterday, about 100 yards north of the White House, we were absolutely shocked by. And our hearts go out to our Aussie mate in the media, Amelia Brace at 7 News. What happened to her and her cameraman is inexcusable, and we never support hurting the free press there. So what we saw there was inexcusable, and in fact, our First Amendment and our Bill of Rights indicates the freedom of press as well as the right for folks to peacefully assemble. So it's a dark situation. Driving into Washington today, I saw armored convoys in a line along the highway. And there's undoubtedly an increased police presence. So it's a difficult situation, not only in Washington, but across the U.S.
Yeah, horrific scenes. Obviously, our hearts go out to everyone there, because, I mean, it's horrific scenes we're seeing in the United States. From a market perspective, though, not having too much of an impact. I mean, when we've traditionally seen civil unrest, which we have seen in the United States before, does it tend to have an impact economically? And keeping in mind we're in an election year, so it just really raises the tensions that much more.
Right. Well, you really got to look at how this civil unrest really started about 8 days ago. It's a confluence of several events. Unemployment is skyrocketing. As we saw last week, there's now more than 40 million unemployment claims in the U.S., and that's disproportionately affecting the African American community and people of color. So you combine that with the rates of African American deaths in the U.S. As a result of coronavirus, and it's a tinderbox. African Americans make up about 13% of the U.S. population, but around a quarter of all COVID-19 deaths. So it's a very difficult situation, and they've also, the African American community has also been disproportionately affected by unemployment. Around 44% of African Americans indicated that either them or someone in their household has lost their job or had wage loss as a result of the pandemic. So you combine a health security problem and economic stress to a community, and then you throw a match of the really difficult murder of Mr. Floyd in Minneapolis, and we're seeing it right now throughout the U.S. It's protests across dozens of cities.
Yeah, tragic scenes. But moving on from that for the moment, while this is all going on in the United States, and I guess President Trump is somewhat distracted by that, you've got Asia or China in the background sort of ratcheting up these trade tensions. How's that tracking at the moment? Because it is taking somewhat of a back seat, at least when it comes to the US at the moment.
Yeah, it is taking a back seat. But the president last week in the Rose Garden announced another series of measures or threats, not only to China, but also to folks, Hong Kongers, that potentially would cooperate with the new security laws. But the fact of the matter is, the U.S. has always gone by a creed. When we're stronger at home, we're stronger abroad. And it makes it that much less effective to admonish countries for, threatening the freedom of press or breaking up peaceful protests when, we see images like we've seen throughout the U.S. over the past week.
All right, Alex, a pleasure to have you on the program. Thanks for giving us an update on the situation.